Welcome back to the Alumni Corner, the only show on YouTube. Wait, don't Google that. This week's question comes from GameDesigning.org. Do I need to know how to code to design games? This was their number 6 most frequently asked question, and I understand. I used to get this question a lot. Here's the short answer. No, because game design has almost nothing to do with coding. Here's the long answer. No, because game design has very little to do with coding. But if you want to take the game that you've designed and make it real, you'll have to learn to think like a coder. Game design at its core is about defining the game, not actually making it. So if you want to design a game, all you have to do is sit down and start writing it out. Anyone can design a game, regardless of their skill set. In fact, last week, we actually covered that in lots of detail. So if you're interested in watching that, episode will be in the top left corner. I think this question actually has another question hiding inside of it. I hear this question a lot from artists, visual effects, graphic designers, people on the more creative side of things. I think what they're secretly trying to ask is, I have this idea for a game. Can I make it even though I don't know how to code? First, can I make a quick clarification about the term coder and coding? I don't actually know any programmers that call themselves coders. I'm pretty sure our preferred pronouns are programmer. But let's address the most obvious solution to this question. Find a programmer. ICGDC almost always has an abundance of engineers. I promise. We don't bite. But if that option's off the table, I can still give an emphatic, yes, you can! But game making tools are still going to require you to learn about logical reasoning, which will essentially make you think like a programmer. Yeah, it's a big old but, ain't it? First, you gotta choose your tools. Most games are made inside of a game engine. Engines are computer applications that are built to have games made inside of them. Think of them like a fancy game-making toolbox. There are tons of game engines out there, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Some try to be jacks of all trades, which allow you to make any sort of game in them, while others specialize in specific types of games. Like, take RPG Maker for instance. Can you guess what kind of games are made in that engine? That's right. 4-dimensional VR fighting games. Hadouken! Along with this, some engines are more beginner-friendly than others. Some engines actually try to simplify game logic down so much that no one has to write a single line of code. However, the more an engine tries to remove programming from the equation, the more it sacrifices its abilities. The best example is Stencil. This engine doesn't use a single line of code. In fact, it was actually built to teach people how to program. I'm not kidding. They use this in elementary schools to teach kids. At the same time, you can't really make more than very simple 2D games with it. There are powerful codeless engines out there though. The most common use something called drag and drop logic. These make it as simple as dragging the solid tag onto a wall to make it, well, solid. A lot of these drag and drop engines are very beginner friendly. The easiest is probably GameSalad, but our favorite is GameMaker Studio. This engine has made some monster hits. Ever heard of Hyperlight Drifter? What about Hotline Miami? What about Undertale? While these engines take out the code, they don't actually take out the programming. In order to realize your game, you still have to learn to build using logic. Every game is made up of teeny tiny little rules. Rules that seem obvious, but they still have to be put in place inside the game. The player cannot walk through solid walls. The player has to be level 5 before they unlock this skill. If the player presses the right trigger, fire the player's gun. If the player presses the Y button, swap the player's weapons. So you may not be making an RPG or a shooter or a Zelda game, but even visual novels and dating sims use logic just like this. It's going to feel like a lot at first, but stick with it. Try not to get overwhelmed. If you get stuck, just head on over to Google and see if somebody has already tried to do what you're doing. Game makers love sharing their solutions. It's like bragging rights. Alright, so now you guys have zero reason not to go forth make games, and be awesome. I'll see y'all next week.